So it's great to talk to you, Kat Brown, journalist, author, and the author of the book. Nobody talks about this. No one talks about this stuff. Excellent. And we've named this our Well-Doing Book of the Month for April 2024. And I wanted to start by asking what led you to pull this book together. Explain what it is and what drew you to pull it all together.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for making it Book of the Month. I've basically spent 3.5 years essentially putting this together in my sitting room. I only met most of the contributors in person at the launch party I gave in March. So the fact that it is a real book rather than just something inside my head is wonderful. And I put it together because, without wanting to sound too twee about it, of what was inside my head. My husband and I had been trying to conceive for a few years. We had 2 cycles of IVF in 2019, which failed because my eggs, which were apparently brilliant according to all of the tests, just wouldn't mature enough to fertilize. We never got embryos. We never even got to the point of even thinking about a pregnancy. And that was such a surprise to me because I'd obviously researched the hell out of all elements of IVF and fertility and had felt fairly confident in going into it, and then realized that, you know, everything that I knew had only really been in existence for as long as I'd been alive. This is a really, really, really new science. And yet the confidence of medicine, as I've seen in other areas of life, is very much that we know best. And if it goes wrong, it's probably your fault. And I just absolutely fell apart. I didn't know what to do, who to speak to. I looked up charities, but they were all for either parents who had lost children or, thankfully, I found Jodie Day's Gateway Women community, which is for women who are childless, not by choice. And I just felt that there was nowhere for me to go. And my habit over the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years of journalism is to find case studies. And essentially that's what I've done in this book is I put together an anthology of new writing to really sort of show the spectrum, if you like, of infertility. Because one thing that I've really found is that it's not necessarily people with exactly the same story as me that I've found the greatest comfort from. It's I can draw reassurance or find the similarities, not the differences, to nick that saying from recovery. And in all kinds of areas, it's just the feelings, really, rather than the specificity. And of course, whenever we go through something really difficult, we're going through it with all of the intersections that we bring to it. And unfortunately, there are no incredibly tall, posh voiced women from South London who also have immature eggs. So basically, by bringing all of these people together, men, women, he's, she's, they's, straight, gay, child free, childless, having gone on to become parents through adoption, all kinds of things. It's really sort of to create a support group for people who at one time or another, or perhaps still, were almost parents, whether through loss or history not having caught up to them yet, all kinds of reasons. And I did that by crowdfunding it through the publisher Unbound, because what I'd found in my own experience back in 2019 was that so many books about infertility were either very sciencey or they were stories, memoirs about celebrities, usually white, usually blonde, often staring out to sea, looking sad on the cover, but who almost inevitably had a baby at the end and then were never sad again. And that's just not how life works. Like parents who've lost children, they don't forget those children. So yeah, but basically by being able to crowdfund it, it meant that I didn't have to, rely or, try and find like huge names who were already perhaps familiar, perhaps comforting to traditional publishers, and could really try and make the range of experience as broad as possible, because we don't know what we don't know. And I mean, my goodness, like editing this book has been a massive privilege, but also I've learned so much along the way. And I really, really hope that anybody coming to this from a sort of from a clinical or therapeutic perspective really, really finds that as well, because there is no one story, there's no one angle to any of this.
And I wondered, because you've got 22 different people, as you say, some of the stories, well, they're all different, aren't they? They all have a different trajectory. What do you think those individuals, how is it helpful to people to talk like this, do you think, to share their stories for those people who told you their stories?
Well, not everybody in the book is a professional writer. Lots of people are, like Stella Duffy has done a brilliant Effie essay. Sophia Money Coates, who more normally is a newspaper columnist and writes brilliant romantic comedies. But, lots of people are just getting on with their lives. Ragashri Dariawan is an HIV doctor. Natalie Sutherland is a lawyer. Everybody's just sort of getting on with their lives. But I think sometimes if you've been through something really challenging, then once you've sort of processed it to a point, because nobody coming into this book is coming into it from a raw, unhealed perspective. I mean, obviously you live with that. It's not like, oh, well, nothing was ever troubling again. But it was very important to me that everybody had sort of done quite a lot of therapeutic work themselves and had really, come to terms with it, was sort of living with it rather than it being the giant gaping wound in their chest at all times. And certainly what I've heard from the people who either agreed to take part because I asked them or came to me through the public submissions round that I had was that they had felt so flipping alone in whatever time, whatever area was going on, that they just really wanted to share that story. And I hear that quite a lot in the other field of work that I do, which is ADHD, which is people going, well, maybe in 5, 10 years, we won't have to be so vulnerable, and that'll be great because people will just get it. But for now, we want to be vulnerable. We want to show all of the horrible, gritty innards and feelings and difficulties because there are so many people out there who aren't on Twitter, who wouldn't dream of saying something publicly, but they really, really, really need that support. And they're not always going to get it or be able to find it. So just having another book out there like this that is, available to order from libraries, from regular bookshops, not that sort of sending off a stamped addressed envelope to the middle of nowhere sort of thing, which makes you feel it can make you feel even more stigmatized. That's why people did it, not necessarily to make them feel that their grief has now got value or is worth something because they've made something out of it. Although actually, some people have found that it's been a lovely way of honouring their children. And actually, one of the pledge levels for the book, because in crowdfunding, it's all about pledges and rewards and that sort of thing, was we have a section at the back of the book called Remembering Our Children. And there it was basically an opportunity for people to write the names of, the children that either weren't able to exist, were never conceived, or, very sadly died along the way. And that is just the most incredibly moving thing, particularly because the month before the book came out, baby loss certificates were introduced.
Yes.
And that is, wonderful. So it's all of these things are just adding to making more opportunities out there for people to hopefully find. And that's really powerful for the people that took part.
So would you say it's part of a general move in society? Your book is part of that general move in society to make it more possible for people going through IVF or struggling with infertility or anything around that whole area of fertility and infertility to be able to talk to people in their lives or through their lives.
Hugely. And it's not even anything to do with IVF or fertility medicine, because sadly, goodness knows that horrible, awful, tragic things happen when everything has gone really well, in inverted commas, if you like. I think one of the most moving things that I've heard is from somebody who gave the proof of the book to a friend of hers who's 80. and struggled to have children with her husband. And I I sort of mentally thought, oh well, the reader of this book will probably be, I don't know, 30s to 50s or that sort of thing, which is incredibly patronizing of me, but also incredibly naive, because at 41, I'm reasonably lucky to have grown up during a time when there has been more support, more widely available, more stories shared in all sorts of areas on social media. And the advent of podcasts, of course, has been really, really helpful. But there is still something huge to be said for the privacy, the security, and the comfort of a book.
Mm.
And I'm just so delighted that we've actually got that now, because more people are talking out about this stuff, not because we are oversharers or because, we want our moment in the limelight. I mean, hi, this is literally the worst kind of limelight that anybody in this book could possibly want. But we're not getting anything out of this. Like, the contributors got £200 and came to the launch party. I so far have got some books, which is wonderful, but it's getting the messages from people who are reading it, who have either been through something like this themselves, or who know somebody who has, which is really important, or who are just delightful people who want to build on their empathy. Like, as humans, we are obviously intrinsically social people, but going through something like this, it just knocks you for six. Like, I am a reasonably gregarious person, and I've never been more isolated than I have been in the 4+ years of going through all of this stuff and trying to recover from it. And the only way, really, that I've been able to a certain extent, recover from it is by reading to and listening to the stories of people who share, whether they are somebody as famous and incredibly generous and brave as Chrissy Teigen, for example, talking about how her family has come together and about their losses, or from somebody in this book who preferred to be anonymous because her community is incredibly small and she was very worried that somebody might recognize her. All of that is valid. All of that is incredibly generous. And just all of that helps us to feel less alone.
Mm. Thanks so much, Kat. I have to say, I think it's a fantastic book. I've read all of the 22 authors' stories, and I thought that it's an incredibly valuable resource for people. And as you remember, you were on a CPD with our therapist, and they really loved it as well. Very useful to them to have you gathering all that information, speaking to them. So good luck with the book, and I hope to see you again sometime.
Thank
Okay.
you so much. Again, the well-doing team are the people who I really hoped would find this book,
Yeah.
because, yeah, they're the people who can hopefully recommend it and pass it on. So thank you very much to you all.
Great. Thank you.